The food series. Water, something we all take for granted. Well, it depends if where you live. If you're middle of the Sahara, it's very important. Camels can drink, right? You, on the other hand, can lose a lot of water very fast, and that's why you're in the Sahara Desert. You're covered. You wear a hat and everything else. Water is H2O, 2-part hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. And it's been around our planet for billions of years. Unless you don't believe in evolution, then it's only been here 6,000 years. By itself, it's inorganic. It's transparent. Yes. Tasteless, odorless, and basically almost a colorless substance, chemical substance. And I, as a person, can buy it in bottled water, plastic water, right, which is pure. I can buy it as distilled water, which is a lot more that thing, which is pure and colorless, odorless, flavorless. Or I can get it from, like my mother's well, which is 100 feet. I can pull it from the ground, which just happens to run through a filter system. She has these multi 3M filter systems, and it goes through the filter system for the kitchen water. Okay. Basically, it's for her own little fountain for water and for cooking, right? And what the filters do is remove chlorine, any particles, so be it, coming up from the well, right? It basically cleans the water. So her glass of water with her medicine, the chlorine, there's no chlorine in it, it would be taking out all the particles in there that you don't want, and preferably any bacteria that happens to be 100 feet down, which there really isn't much. I would say there's nothing. But again, it cleans her water. Now, if she was in a city, it would remove particles in the water from the water main, and it would remove the chlorine, and it would remove oils from the main, the sealants and that thing, and anything else that flows into the system. Did my color just change? Okay. Now, when you go to a restaurant, okay, there they have city water coming in. And that city water has 2 different pipes. One city water goes to the dishwasher, and that pipe also goes to the washrooms. But it doesn't go to the water fountain out there. If there's a water fountain, it doesn't go there. That water comes from a filtration system that usually is 3M, let's say 3M. It's, a couple cylinders screw in, which are changed every few months or whatever time they say. And you throw them out, and you put new filters in. And it is to get rid of anything that's particles that are in your water, get rid of the chlorine, and any, as I said, oil or possibly something else. Why? Because what you do is that water is going for, if any kind of cooking you do, and it also goes to the water fountain out in front, and it goes in for your ice machine. The last thing you want to do is somebody taking a Pepsi or a Coke, RC, or Diet or something else and smell chlorine. You better know it. And the last thing you want to do is, if you have a restaurant with sit down and somebody comes over there for a glass of water and that thing, is to have your glass of water smell of chlorine. That's why the filters are there. And you don't want somebody holding it up and see a couple of fishes floating around in there. I don't think they're going to be like you very much, and they will basically give you a bad rating on the internet very fast. That's why the filters are there. Now you, sitting in your house, may decide, if you have city water, to do the same thing. For your cooking, to remove the chlorine, to remove any particles in there, to remove the flavor that comes with the city water. If you're in Chicago and you have a restaurant, the last thing you want to do is have your beautiful meal spoiled with a taste of chlorine. You better know it. And they go through, well, let's go, I eat at the Union League Club. The last thing you want to do is sitting in a restaurant and somebody hands you a glass of chlorine. They won't do it. Of course not. Knowing the chefs there, they likely get not city water using, but distilled water, which you can buy at distill or ionized units in big restaurants. Not the small little mom and pop thing, but bigger, higher class restaurants. They're using distilled water. Their vegetables are all, to me, I would go get to Restaurant Depot and buy a 100-ounce can Green Giant peas. They will go to get a 100-ounce can at Restaurant Depot or Gordon's and the same thing and cook it for the masses. Or, like say string beans, they will go to and buy fresh green beans in the morning or have it delivered, and they will cook it in filtered water, distilled water many times, because the last thing you want to do is the water to have a flavor to it that you didn't put into it. Yeah, like, Flint, Michigan. That is very important. And you got to remember, water is a solvent. It dissolves rock. It dissolves anything in rock. If you have a restaurant of a higher class, as I said before, you want to not have a flavor that tastes like rock or tastes the off flavor of water. And people say, well, that's awful expensive. Well, you can buy the little filters. Yeah, does almost similar stuff. You can buy it with charcoal. You can buy it with other filters. You're basically removing the chlorine from that. But my mother is basically, she's on medicine. And you don't want to say, if she goes somewhere and there's chlorine in the water, it will interfere with her medicine. Well, of course, glass of water, everything. Yeah. You don't want that. I don't know what the chlorine in the water will do, but it's a chemical. Killed bacteria. I don't want it to kill my mother. Insurance rate. Mom, you got a lot of insurance? Wife, you got a lot of insurance? And of course, my wife would come out with, on you, I got a lot of insurance. Be nice. Well, what else can I say about water? commercial filtration. I have 3M. You know, those little cylinders. That's what I use. I know a chef who in his house has the same thing. He has local city water, and he has a filtration system. And every time he cooks, it's in his kitchen. Then the stuff for the bathroom is not going to be drunk anyway. You can drink out of the toilet bowl or the sink. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to get water from the kitchen. That's what it's meant for. Other neighbors may not even have that. Maybe they don't care about their health. I do. And as I get older, a lot more healthy I want to be. Also, being in Illinois, Lake Michigan water. Let me tell you something about Lake Michigan water. It's biologically safe to drink. Chemically, it's not. I work for a 7-Up bottling company. You know, 7-Up, Gatorade, what have you. And they bought water from the city, and they had a 2,000-foot well. It went into their big vat, I mean, basically one story, 20 feet high, chlorine mixing and everything. They put it inside that, and then they ran it through filters to remove the chlorine or anything else in the water system. And that's what they use to bottle their Gatorade or 7-Up, things like that. To understand, chlorine reacts to acid negatively. Give you an example. I worked, those little cartons of orange juice. Yes. I was working in an analytical lab and going out and getting samples of the product, and they were mixing the orange juice, their brand of orange juice, and putting into a great big stainless steel tank and putting water into it. Well, if this was bottled in the 7-Up plant, the water would be chlorine free. At this little operation, I looked for the tanks to remove the chlorine, and I told the guy, I said, are these guys food chemists? I don't know. Well, hey, you guys are food chemists, right? Oh, no. Oh. So I kind of walked into the office before I said anything and said, far as I know, if you take chlorinated water, which you're using here, and put it in with an orange juice that has citric acid in it, your final result is going to be a mush in the carton. And she said, what? You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. And she checked. Yes. And if that is going to be on a store shelf for testing, it's going to go mush. An alkali and an acid. Oh, you still don't know what you're talking about. Okay. What happened? It went mush. Within a couple of days, yeah. Very simple, it went mush. So you have to watch what you mix your stuff with. And you got to think, if you got good product, you're going to have a good food. You're going to have a bunch of people over. You don't want to basically do is serve chlorine water with your meal, and you don't want it to cause off flavor to your food. That's it. In finer restaurants, the Union League Club is not going to have chlorinated water, maybe to wash the dishes, maybe into the washrooms, but they're not going to have chlorinated water to actually cook food with. And it makes a big difference. Of course, there's a big difference between Union League Club restaurant and greasy spoon down the street. Big difference. It's called quality of food. But let's see, what else do we have here? Water in a restaurant. One pipe goes to a restaurant. They'll have filtered drinking and cooking water, and to the fountain and the ice machine. It's one of the requirements. Your fast food restaurants have them. The big global stuff have them. The other, a greasy spoon, maybe they don't want to have filtered. Maybe they don't care. You're right, they don't care. But again, what am I going to do? Well, our next thing is going to be on I didn't mention about the natural states of water existed as a participation in the form of rain and aerosols in the form of fog, and clouds consist of suspended droplets of water and ice. It's a solid state. It's in my list. I didn't read. But again, so what you're going to do is this is just basically food chemistry, and the next discussions will be on protein, which is, when I was a very young kid, not really doing it, my mom says we're going to make Easter eggs. Oh boy. Now I understand the egg is when it's scrambled eggs, and I learned that. I learned something to do. My mother drops it into the boiling water for 3 minutes and pull them out, and I shake it like that. I don't hear it. She asks me, "What are you doing?" Might be a chicken inside. There's no chicken inside. So she made that thing, and I was amazed when we actually broke the shell and seeing the solid mass with solid white and solid yolk. That really amazed me. Of course, when I became a short order cook during summer breaks from high school, I learned a lot about cooking. Yes, my father said and my mother said, you're going to learn a lot about cooking, Richard. And I did. I learned a lot about cooking. And I transferred that cooking when I did one of my cousins was in Florida, around Miami, and he needed help building. And I got tagged for that for 6 months. Relatives, I met a lot of my relatives down there. It's this thing having uncles, aunts and uncles that are part of as my father was part of a 15 man, women, children out of my grandmother. Well, a lot of cousins get together and they do these projects. It's house building time. Yes, it's house building time. You're not doing anything else. Come down here and help build a house. Get fed. And after that time, I worked at Lum's, and they said, "Do you have any previous cooking experience?" I said, "Well, I did summers between Memorial Day and Labor Day. I worked in this camp as a short order cook." And they said, "Oh, you're hired." My base salary was, for 60 hours a week, I got paid $40. I lasted about 3 months, and I said, right after New Year's Day, we were off. I said, I'm going to go back home. Yeah. 66 cents an hour. Well, I had a lot of benefits for Lumps. They paid for health. They paid for all the health, medical, dental, paid for my rent. Think of that. They paid for my rent because I was a short order cook, and they had a hard time finding short order cooks. They give those little perks and extra bonuses for Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's and things like that. which helped pay for my train ticket back home. But that was a fine restaurant. Yeah, they went out of business. They went from, I worked in Coconut Grove. They had one in Miami, then they had one in Coconut Grove. I worked at Coconut Grove, and then they started to become franchise, and then somebody took them over, and then they get split up again and split up again. And one time they had something like 400 different restaurants across as a franchise across that thing, and then they went bankrupt. I guess the old ways of doing things didn't appeal, or they lost the flavor. Their famous thing was hot dogs cooked in beer. Novelty wore off. Yeah, and it's if to me about cooking is as a short order cook. I never thought I would go to college. I went to college. I took my graduate chemistry, and I learned all this other stuff. And then I worked for a food company. I actually found out how all this stuff is made. Yeah, I found out how all this stuff is made. Basically food chemistry or food scientists, I guess. I would be chemistry or chemical engineer, food chemical engineer, and orthochemistry and food. And I took all the courseworks, how to bake. I can tell you about. Oh, maybe I will. In the bakery industry, they basically say, do not use chlorinated water. Period. Or you will ruin your product. So nobody uses chlorinated water. I worked at Carp's, and it was all filter water through the whole place. And they had their own, basically, water filtration plant in the thing. Going into the lab, it was all water filtration. Going down to the baking units, it's all water filtration. The cafeteria was water filtration. And it's all that because they did pie fillings and they did sauces. And they did Carp's chocolate chip cookies. And I learned a lot about chocolate chip cookies. And the Carp's chocolate chip cookies came in these little itty bitty white buckets. Right. And they were specially made chocolate chip cookies. You could not buy them. Those are restaurants bought them. They bought the ingredients, everything else, but they bought in the thing, and it was a trade secret. What was a trade secret? Trade secret. It's like when I was working at Lumps. It was I'm the guy who mixed the sauces and did all the work as an assistant cook. I mixed the sauces. I mixed this. I mixed that, and everything was trade secret. People would ask me, "Hey, what's in this stuff?" I don't know. Oh, they give me these unmarked packages. I don't know what's in them. Trade secrets. So we're looking at craft foods. Everything's a trade secret. I never discuss what I was working on. Everything I know. But at Carp's, working at Carp's, they had a chocolate chips. Now, what's the difference between that chocolate chip and Nabisco's chocolate chip? Big difference. Carp's chocolate chip is special. I would mix up the batter, right, in great big things, okay. That whole thing would go down to the cooking area downstairs, and they would make up the chocolate chip cookies in their ovens. A few times I was allowed to take a bucket to a ACS meeting, American Chemical Society local section meeting, and give these out. And people said, "Wow, these are good. Where can I buy them? I told him, you can't buy them, but this, well, let's say Union League Club, they serve these as dessert. Of course. Yeah, a Union League Club and this place or this restaurant here at this hotel, you can get one of these cookies. Maybe they will sell you. And now these things were sold by the bucket, okay, and sealed and everything else. So, did I know how they're made? I believe so. Did I question how they were made? Trade secret. Oh, the world of the cooking world. Well, the next talk, my thing will be on protein, which like the egg. And one of the things about protein and the egg, you need to make it all solid. You add heat, organic chemistry. You add heat to it. Yeah, like boiling water. Okay, you drop in the boiling water. Or scramble eggs. Yeah, well, scramble eggs. What are you doing? You're adding heat to it. It's solidifying. That's right. Oh, well, I think that's about it.